I'm Jessica Wright, 28, and I once believed I had it all: a thriving marketing career, a gorgeous fiancé named Ryan, and a dream wedding on the horizon. What I didn't have was a sister I could trust. Amanda had always competed with me, but I never imagined she'd steal my entire life while I was away on business. When I walked into what should have been MY reception and found her wearing MY dress beside MY fiancé, she smirked and said those unforgivable words. Little did they know, I had a secret that would change everything. Before I dive into how my perfect life imploded, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. The justice in this story might just heal your heart too. Ryan Bennett walked into my life 3 years ago at a charity gala in downtown Boston. I was working the event for my marketing firm, ensuring everything ran smoothly for our client. He was there representing his investment firm, looking impossibly handsome in a tailored suit. Our eyes locked across the room in that cliché way you see in movies, but never believe happens in real life. Yet it did. "You look like you could use this," he said, handing me a glass of champagne after watching me manage a minor crisis with the auction items. "Is it that obvious I'm stressed?" I laughed, accepting the drink gratefully. "No, you're handling everything perfectly. I'm just observant." His smile was warm, confident without being cocky. We talked for hours that night, long after my professional obligations ended. Ryan was intelligent, ambitious, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and dreams. By the end of the evening, we'd exchanged numbers, and he called the very next day. Our relationship progressed quickly but never felt rushed. Within 6 months, we were practically living together, and at the 1-year mark, we made it official, finding a beautiful apartment in Back Bay with a view of the Charles River. Every morning, we'd have coffee on our small balcony, planning our future together. Ryan worked at his investment firm, climbing the corporate ladder impressively fast, while I continued developing marketing campaigns for luxury brands. On our 2nd anniversary, Ryan took me to the lighthouse where we'd had our first official date. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, he dropped to one knee and presented a platinum ring with an emerald-cut diamond. "Jessica Wright, you've made these past 2 years the best of my life. You challenge me, support me, and make me laugh every single day. I can't imagine my future without you in it. Will you marry me?" I said yes through happy tears, and we spent the evening calling family and close friends to share our joy. My parents, Barbara and George, were thrilled. Dad had always liked Ryan, especially their shared interest in golf and classic cars. Mom immediately started talking about venue options and dress shopping. Then there was Amanda, my younger sister by 2 years. Her congratulations seemed genuine enough on the phone, but I noticed the slight edge in her voice. That was nothing new. Since childhood, Amanda had lived in the shadow of my achievements, or at least that's how she saw it. When I made honor roll, she pushed herself to make high honors. When I was accepted to Boston University, she applied to Harvard, though ended up at Boston College. When I started dating someone, she'd suddenly find interest in them or try to introduce me to someone better. I hoped my engagement might finally put our rivalry to rest. After all, Amanda was 26 now, surely too mature to compete over something as personal as marriage. But within weeks, she'd started dating a surgeon, sending our mother elaborate texts about their expensive dates and potential future together. Despite this undercurrent of tension, wedding planning began in earnest. Ryan and I secured a stunning waterfront venue for June of the following year, giving us plenty of time to plan. I found my dream dress, an elegant A-line gown with delicate lace detailing and a sweetheart neckline that made me feel like royalty. We sent save the dates, selected our wedding party, with Amanda as a bridesmaid, trying to keep the peace, and started dance lessons for our first dance. 8 months before the wedding, my boss called me into her office with an unexpected opportunity. "We need someone to handle the Kingsley account launch in London," she explained. "It's a 2-week assignment, but it could lead to heading up our new international division. You're my first choice, Jessica. I was flattered, but hesitant. When would this be? Next month. I know it's not ideal with your wedding planning, but this could be career-defining. When I told Ryan that evening, I expected some disappointment, but instead, he was enthusiastically supportive. You have to take this, Jess. The wedding planning will wait. This is huge for your career. He wrapped me in a warm embrace. I'm so proud of you. His support solidified what I already knew. I was marrying the right man. We agreed that he'd handle any urgent wedding matters while I was gone, and my maid of honor, Megan, offered to step in if needed. What I never imagined was that my absence would create the perfect opportunity for the ultimate betrayal, one that would shatter the beautiful life we'd built together. London greeted me with typical English weather, gray skies and a persistent drizzle that seemed to match the growing unease I felt being so far from home. The Kingsley account was even more demanding than anticipated. As a luxury lifestyle brand entering the European market, they needed a complete marketing strategy developed in record time. My days quickly filled with meetings, market research, and creative sessions that often stretched well into the evening. During my first few days abroad, Ryan and I maintained our connection through regular video calls. He'd show me mail that had arrived, ask questions about wedding decisions, and tell me how much he missed me. Each call ended with "I love you" and counting down the days until my return. How's everything at home? I asked during our 5th day's call, noticing he seemed slightly distracted. All good. Just busy at work, Ryan replied, his eyes darting away from the screen momentarily. Oh, Amanda stopped by to drop off some wedding magazines your mom sent. She offered to help with some of the planning while you're away. I felt a twinge of discomfort. That's nice of her. But she doesn't need to do that. We've got most things under control, and Megan can help with anything urgent. It's no problem. She's your sister and wants to be involved. His tone was casual, but something felt off. Over the next few days, our calls became shorter and less frequent. Ryan cited work stress and time zone differences as reasons, which made sense logically, but my intuition whispered warnings I couldn't quite articulate. Then I noticed something on social media that intensified my unease. Amanda had posted a photo of my living room with the caption, "Wedding planning session. Can't wait for the big day." The picture showed scattered brochures and what appeared to be my wedding planning binder on the coffee table. What struck me as odd wasn't just Amanda being in our apartment without me, it was that Ryan was clearly there too. His laptop and distinctive coffee mug were visible in the corner of the shot. I texted Ryan immediately, saw Amanda's post. "You guys working on wedding stuff?" His reply came hours later, "Just going through some vendor options. Nothing major. Don't worry about anything here. Focus on your project." The next day, I received a text from Megan that made my stomach knot. "Hey, is everything okay with you and Ryan? Amanda's been at your place a lot. Just checking." I called Megan during my lunch break, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anxiety building inside me. "What do you mean Amanda's been there a lot?" Ryan said she just dropped by once or twice. Megan hesitated. "Well, I live 3 blocks from you, and I've seen her car there almost every evening this week." I thought maybe you asked her to help with something specific. "No," I replied, feeling a cold weight settling in my chest. "I didn't ask her to help with anything." "I'm sure it's nothing," Megan backpedaled, clearly hearing the concern in my voice. "Maybe they're planning a surprise for when you get back." I wanted to believe that explanation, but the sinking feeling persisted. That evening, my mother called to check on my London experience, and what she said only heightened my suspicions. "Amanda and Ryan seem to be getting along so well lately," she commented cheerfully. She mentioned they're finalizing some wedding details together. "It's nice to see you all acting like family already." "What kind of details?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, I'm not sure of the specifics. Something about the venue and catering, I think. Amanda said not to bother you with it while you're working so hard." After the call, I immediately tried reaching Ryan. He didn't answer. I tried again an hour later, and he finally picked up, sounding slightly out of breath. Hey, sorry I missed your call. I was at the gym. Ryan, what's going on with Amanda? My mom said you two are making wedding decisions without me. It's nothing major, Jess. Just confirming some details with vendors. Amanda offered to help since she knows you're swamped with work. But why wouldn't you discuss these things with me first? And why is she at our apartment every night? Ryan's voice took on a defensive edge. She's not here every night. And I thought you'd appreciate the help. This promotion is important to you, right? I'm just trying to take some pressure off. Something in his tone didn't sit right, but I was exhausted from a 14-hour workday and couldn't summon the energy for a confrontation. Just please don't make any big decisions without me, okay? Of course not. Get some rest, you sound tired. The call ended without our usual I love you, a small detail that loomed large in my mind as I tried to sleep that night. My attempts to reach Amanda went straight to voicemail. I left a casual message asking how she was doing, hoping she might volunteer information about her sudden involvement in my wedding planning. She texted back hours later. Super busy this week. Let's catch up when you're back. Focusing on work like you should be. The dismissive tone and the obvious deflection only intensified my unease. As my London project entered its most critical phase, requiring almost round-the-clock attention, I found myself distracted by the growing certainty that something was very wrong at home. By the end of my first week in London, Ryan had stopped initiating calls, responding to my texts with increasingly brief replies. When we did speak, he seemed hurried and evasive. Once, I distinctly heard Amanda's laugh in the background before he quickly explained she had just stopped by to drop off dinner. My focus on the Kingsley project suffered as my mind constructed increasingly worrying scenarios. Yet each time I confronted my fears directly, logic would intervene. This was Ryan, the man I trusted completely, and Amanda, despite our complicated relationship, was my sister. Surely I was overreacting, letting distance and stress fuel paranoia. But as the second week of my London assignment began, even that rational voice couldn't explain away the growing evidence that something fundamental had shifted in my absence, something that threatened everything I thought was certain in my life. The Kingsley campaign launch was scheduled for Friday, which would mark the end of my 2-week London assignment. However, by Wednesday afternoon, we had miraculously finalized everything ahead of schedule. My team had worked incredibly efficiently, and the client was thrilled with our work. You've exceeded all our expectations, Jessica, Mr. Kingsley said during our final meeting. I've already called your boss to sing your praises. My supervisor back in Boston agreed I could return early. Take Thursday and Friday to travel home and rest, she insisted. You've earned it. I felt a surge of excitement at the thought of surprising Ryan. Perhaps my early return would clear up whatever strange dynamic had developed in my absence. I booked a flight for the following morning, texting Megan, and only Megan, about my early arrival. Don't tell Ryan, I wrote. I want to surprise him. Megan's response was strangely hesitant. Are you sure that's a good idea? Why wouldn't it be? I replied, my anxiety spiking. No reason. Just wondering if he might have planned something for your scheduled return date instead. Her explanation seemed reasonable enough, but it didn't fully dispel my concerns. Nevertheless, I boarded my flight the next morning, the 7-hour journey giving me plenty of time to imagine the joy of reuniting with Ryan and putting my worries to rest. My flight landed at Boston Logan International at 2:30 p.m. local time. I collected my luggage, caught a taxi, and headed straight to our apartment, my heart alternating between excitement and apprehension. When I unlocked the door to our home, I was met with an unusual silence. Ryan should have been at work, so that wasn't surprising, but something felt off. Walking through our living room, I noticed subtle changes. Furniture slightly rearranged, a throw pillow I didn't recognize, a wine glass in the sink with a distinct lipstick stain that wasn't my shade. Most disturbing was the scent lingering in the air, Amanda's distinctive perfume, the expensive French brand she always made sure everyone knew about. It wasn't just a trace suggesting a brief visit. It permeated the space as if she'd been there for hours, perhaps overnight. I went to our bedroom, finding the bed made differently than how Ryan and I typically arranged it. Opening the closet to hang up my coat, I froze. The garment bag containing my wedding dress, which should have been hanging prominently in the center, was gone. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and saw several unread messages that had arrived during my flight. From my cousin Ellie, "Is everything okay with you and Ryan? Just saw something confusing." From my college friend Taylor, "Call me ASAP. Something weird is happening." And most alarmingly, a photo from Ellie showing Amanda wearing what appeared to be my wedding dress, standing beside Ryan at what looked exactly like the venue we had booked. The timestamp showed the photo was taken just an hour ago. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. There had to be some explanation. Maybe it was a weird rehearsal? A photo shoot for something? But deep down, I knew. I called Ellie with shaking hands. "Jessica." "Oh my God," she answered immediately. "Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm home." "What's happening? Why is Amanda in my dress at my venue?" There was a long pause. "You don't know?" "Jessica, they're getting married. Today. Right now. Everyone thought you knew, that you'd called off the engagement and Amanda was taking your place. That's what they told everyone." The world tilted beneath me. Without responding, I ended the call, grabbed my car keys, and raced downstairs. I drove to the waterfront venue in a state of shock, running multiple red lights along the way. The valet attendant recognized me as I screeched to a halt outside the venue. "Ms. Wright, I thought you were inside already. Your sister looks just like you in that dress." I pushed past him, rushing through the doors and following the sound of reception music. What I saw stopped me cold, my planned wedding in full swing, but with Amanda as the bride. My carefully selected flowers decorated every table. My chosen band played our first dance song. My hand-picked menu was being served to my invited guests. And there in the center of it all, Amanda and Ryan danced together, her head on his shoulder, wearing my dress altered slightly to fit her frame. The sight was so surreal that for a moment, I wondered if I was hallucinating. People noticed me standing there in my travel clothes, shock evident on my face. Conversations halted. The music played on, but the atmosphere shifted as heads turned toward me. Amanda saw me first. Instead of shame or guilt, her expression showed only momentary surprise before settling into something worse, smugness. She whispered something to Ryan, who turned to look at me, his face paling. I walked toward them, the crowd parting silently around me. "What is this?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. Amanda's grip tightened on Ryan's arm possessively. "Exactly what it looks like, Jess. Life goes on. Plans change. These are my plans. My venue. My dress. My fiancé." Each word felt like glass in my throat. "We're yours," she corrected, her smile never wavering. "Ryan and I realized we were meant to be together while you were gone. We didn't want to waste all these excellent arrangements." I looked at Ryan, waiting for him to contradict her, to say this was some elaborate, cruel joke. He met my gaze briefly before looking away. "I'm sorry, Jessica," he mumbled, not sounding sorry at all. Things just happened." "Things just happened?" I repeated incredulously. "In 2 weeks? You decided to marry my sister in my planned wedding." By now, everyone was watching the unfolding drama. I spotted my parents standing nearby, their expressions a mix of shock and discomfort. They hadn't stopped this. They were participating. "You should probably go," Amanda said, maintaining her composed facade. "You're making a scene. But you can watch from the sidelines if you want. After all, you did plan a beautiful wedding." Something inside me shattered at those words. The callousness, the complete lack of remorse, it was beyond comprehension. I noticed my mother finally moving toward me, but it was too late. I couldn't bear another second in that room, watching my sister live the life she'd stolen from me. I turned and ran, tears blinding me as I pushed through the doors and out into the parking lot. Behind me, I heard a few voices calling my name, but I didn't stop. I got into my car and drove, with no destination in mind, just needing to put distance between myself and the horrifying scene I'd just witnessed. My entire life had just imploded, and I hadn't even seen it coming. I checked into the first hotel I came across, a mid-range chain off the highway. The front desk clerk glanced at my tear-stained face, but professionally avoided comment as I paid for the room with shaking hands. Once inside, I collapsed onto the bed, finally allowing the full impact of what had happened to crash over me. My phone had been buzzing continuously since I fled the wedding venue. I forced myself to look at the screen, 23 missed calls and dozens of texts. Some were from concerned friends who had witnessed the confrontation. Others were from family members, including 3 from my mother. None were from Ryan or Amanda. One text from Megan stood out. "I'm so sorry, Jess. I suspected something but had no proof. Tell me where you are. You shouldn't be alone right now." I hesitated before responding with my location. Within 40 minutes, there was a knock at my door. Megan stood there holding a bag from the liquor store and another containing ice cream. "I didn't know which would help more," she said softly, "so I brought both." We sat on the hotel bed, passing a pint of chocolate ice cream between us as I tried to make sense of what had happened. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. I said, my voice hollow, that there had to be an explanation for why they were spending so much time together. Megan's expression was pained. "I started noticing things about 2 or 3 days after you left. Amanda's car at your place at odd hours, them together at restaurants. But it seemed so outlandish, the idea that your sister and fiancé would." She trailed off. "Did everyone know except me?" The question that had been burning inside me. "No," Megan said firmly. "Most people at the wedding today seemed confused. The story they told was that you had called things off with Ryan because of some job opportunity in London, and that you had given them your blessing to use the venue and arrangements since everything was already paid for." The calculated nature of their deception made me physically ill. And my parents? They were there. They didn't stop it. Megan hesitated. "From what I gathered, they were told this was what you wanted. That you and Amanda had worked things out between you. Your mom looked pretty shocked when you showed up." The following days passed in a blur of grief and logistics. I couldn't return to the apartment I'd shared with Ryan, not only because I couldn't bear to be there, but because legally it was his name on the lease. I extended my hotel stay while looking for a new place to live. The Monday after the wedding, my phone rang with a call from my mother. After 3 days of silence, I finally answered. "Jessica, please come home. We need to talk about this." "Talk about what, Mom?" "How you watched Amanda marry Ryan without even calling to check if your other daughter was okay with it. We thought you knew. Amanda showed us texts from you saying you were staying in London for a job and didn't want the wedding anymore. She said you told her she could have the venue since it was paid for. And you believe that?" Without talking to me directly. My voice cracked. "Did you even try to call me?" The silence told me everything. They hadn't tried hard enough. They had accepted the convenient story that caused the least disruption. "We're so sorry, Jessica. We had no idea." But sorry couldn't undo what had happened. Sorry couldn't erase the images burned into my mind. Amanda in my dress, Ryan holding her the way he used to hold me, my carefully planned wedding becoming the backdrop for their betrayal. A week after returning from London, I met with Megan for coffee. She had been collecting information from mutual friends, trying to piece together the timeline of Amanda and Ryan's deception. "From what I can gather, it started about 3 months ago," she explained gently. "Long before your London trip. Taylor saw them having lunch together at that cafe near Ryan's office. They claimed it was about planning your birthday surprise." 3 months? We were actively planning our wedding then. I was with him every day. How could he? "There's more," Megan said hesitantly. "Rebecca from your office said she saw them at the Harborview Hotel one night, going into an elevator together. Each new revelation was another knife to my heart. The betrayal wasn't just about the wedding day. It had been ongoing, deliberate, planned. While I was excitedly planning our future, Ryan had been building a different one with my sister. I learned they had systematically used all my wedding deposits and arrangements. They had contacted my vendors, using Amanda's access to my wedding planning email, which I had shared with her months earlier when she'd offered to help with minor tasks. They had sent updated invitations to guests, explaining the change in bride, with their fabricated story about my sudden career move to London. The promotion I had been so excited about, the one Ryan had so enthusiastically encouraged me to pursue, now seemed like convenient timing they had exploited. Despite the success of the Kingsley campaign, I took a leave of absence from work. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't bring myself to care about marketing strategies and brand positioning when my personal life had been so thoroughly destroyed. I found a small studio apartment across town and furnished it sparsely with essentials. Each night, I would lie awake replaying moments from my relationship with Ryan, searching for signs I had missed, red flags I had ignored. Each memory was now tainted, suspect. Had he ever truly loved me? Or had I just been a placeholder until someone better came along? The worst part was the isolation. Many mutual friends felt caught in the middle and kept their distance. Some believed the lies Ryan and Amanda had told. Others simply didn't know what to say in the face of such a betrayal. My parents tried repeatedly to reach out, but I maintained minimal contact. Their failure to verify such an outlandish story before participating in that wedding felt like its own betrayal. 1 month after the wedding, I hit my lowest point. I had lost weight, wasn't sleeping, and could barely function. My new apartment still had unpacked boxes scattered about, as if setting up a real home would somehow make this new reality permanent. That evening, sitting on my bare mattress with no energy even to cry anymore, I wondered if I would ever recover from this. Everything I had believed about my life, my future, my relationships, had been proven false. The career success I had achieved in London felt meaningless compared to the personal devastation I was experiencing. I had trusted completely and been betrayed absolutely, and I had no idea how to move forward from that. Exactly 3 weeks and 2 days after what I now referred to as the incident, an unexpected envelope arrived at my new apartment. The return address belonged to David Cooper, Ryan's former roommate from his early days at the investment firm. We had met a few times at company events, but I wouldn't have called us friends. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note and a USB drive. "Jessica, I've been trying to find you since I heard what happened. What Ryan and your sister did was unforgivable, but there's more you should know. I've been collecting these over the past 6 months because something fell off. I'm sorry I didn't show you sooner. David." With shaking hands, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. It contained hundreds of screenshots, text messages between Ryan and Amanda dating back almost a year, emails they had exchanged, photos of them together at times when Ryan had told me he was working late or on business trips. Their affair had started long before my London assignment, almost 3 months after our engagement. But as shocking as that revelation was, it wasn't the most disturbing information on the drive. Among the screenshots were email exchanges between Ryan and someone named Marcus at his firm, discussing ways to adjust client accounts and reallocate funds. There were spreadsheets showing unusual transfers, bank statements with highlighted transactions, and notes about covering tracks. Ryan had been embezzling from his company. Further digging revealed evidence of massive gambling debts Ryan had accumulated, online poker, sports betting, casino losses. He had been using the embezzled money to cover these debts while maintaining our lifestyle. Several text exchanges between Ryan and Amanda explicitly discussed my excellent credit score and how Ryan planned to use it to secure loans once we were married. There were also references to the inheritance I had received after my grandmother passed away the previous year, money I had placed in a separate account for our future children's education. Once we're married, I'll have access to her accounts. We can solve both our problems, Ryan had written to Amanda. But what about after the wedding? Won't she notice money missing? Amanda had replied, not if we're careful. Besides, with her workload, she barely checks her statements. We just need to get through the wedding first. As I read through more messages, the nature of their relationship became clear. Ryan had initially approached Amanda as an accomplice, using her jealousy of me as leverage to gain her help in accessing my finances. But somewhere along the line, their conspiracy had evolved into an affair. Another screenshot showed Amanda writing, "What if we didn't have to hide? What if I didn't have to be the secret side piece anymore?" Ryan's reply, "You know, I can't leave her yet. Not until I have access to the inheritance." The timing of my London trip had presented them with an unexpected opportunity to accelerate their plan. With me out of the country and focused on work, they had seized the chance to take everything, not just my fiancé, but my wedding, my dress, my carefully laid plans. I sat staring at my screen, emotions churning inside me. The pain of their betrayal was still acute, but now it was joined by something else. Cold, clarifying anger. This hadn't just been a case of two people falling for each other behind my back. This had been calculated, predatory, aimed at exploiting me financially. My first instinct was to call the police immediately, to expose Ryan's fraud and Amanda's complicity, to watch their newly minted marriage crumble under the weight of criminal charges. But as the initial surge of rage subsided, I realized that rushing into action might not be the wisest move. I called Stephanie Miller, a lawyer friend from college who specialized in financial crimes. "This is extensive," she said after I forwarded her the files. "But I need to warn you, if you go to the authorities right now, things could get complicated." Ryan could claim these documents were obtained illegally. He could delete evidence, cover his tracks. "So what do I do?" I asked, frustration evident in my voice. "If you want justice, real justice, you need more. More evidence, more documentation. This is a good start, but you need an airtight case." She paused. "And Jessica? Be careful. People who commit financial fraud and manipulate others this way, they're dangerous when cornered." That night, I couldn't sleep. But unlike the insomnia of previous weeks, which had been marked by anguish and grief, this sleeplessness had purpose. I was formulating a plan. The next morning, I contacted David Cooper, thanking him for the information and asking if we could meet. Over coffee at a quiet cafe far from our usual haunts, he filled in more details. "I noticed discrepancies in some accounts I was helping Ryan with about 6 months ago," David explained. When I questioned him, he brushed it off as administrative errors. But then I saw the same pattern repeating. "Around the same time, he started mentioning your sister a lot. Why didn't you say anything?" I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. David looked down, ashamed. "I was gathering proof. Going to management with half-baked suspicions against a rising star like Ryan would have ended my career, not his. By the time I had enough evidence to be confident, you were in London and they were." He trailed off. "Getting married in my wedding," I finished flatly. "I'm sorry, Jessica. I should have found a way to warn you." Despite my initial anger, I could understand David's position. Corporate politics and self-preservation were powerful motivators. At least he had come forward now. That evening, I called Megan and shared everything I had learned. "So it wasn't just about them falling for each other," she said, clearly disgusted. "This was about money the whole time. And not just any money, my money. My inheritance, my credit, my financial stability." The realization made me feel physically ill. I thought I knew Ryan. I thought I knew my own sister. How could I have been so blind? "You weren't blind, Jess. You were trusting. There's a difference." Megan's voice was gentle but firm. "So, what are you going to do now?" The question hung in the air between us. A week ago, I might have said nothing, might have chosen to withdraw, lick my wounds, and try to forget. But now, with this new knowledge, something had shifted inside me. "I'm going to get justice," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Not revenge, justice. For myself and for everyone else they've hurt with their schemes. This secret, the evidence of their financial crimes, wasn't just painful knowledge. It was power. It was a path forward. It was the key to ensuring that what they had done to me wouldn't simply be brushed aside as romantic drama. For the first time since walking into that wedding reception, I felt something other than despair. I felt purpose. I felt control returning. And with it came the first faint stirring of something I had thought was lost forever: hope. My marketing career had taught me valuable lessons about strategy, messaging, and the power of perception. Now, I would apply those skills to the most important campaign of my life. The first step was establishing a facade. If Ryan and Amanda suspected I knew about their financial crimes, they would immediately cover their tracks. I needed them to believe I was merely a heartbroken ex, too devastated by their betrayal to pose any threat. It wasn't difficult to appear devastated. I was. But beneath the genuine grief, a plan was taking shape. I returned to work, explaining my absence as personal issues that were now being addressed. My boss, impressed by the success of the Kingsley campaign, welcomed me back warmly and offered me the international division position we had discussed before my London trip. "Are you sure you're ready?" she asked, concern evident in her expression. Word of my public humiliation had spread through office gossip. "I need this," I replied honestly. "I need to focus on something other than my personal life right now." The promotion came with a significant salary increase and, more importantly, a reason to appear too busy and preoccupied to pursue any questions about Ryan's financial activities. My next step was connecting with David more regularly. As Ryan's colleague, he had access to information I couldn't obtain directly. We established a secure communication system using encrypted messaging apps to share updates. "Ryan's getting sloppy," David reported 2 weeks into our arrangement. "He seems stressed, taking more risks with the accounts. Keep documenting everything," I instructed. "But don't draw attention to yourself." Meanwhile, I reached out to the security team at Ryan's firm through an anonymous tip line they maintained for whistleblowers. I provided just enough information to raise red flags without revealing everything we knew. This ensured the firm would begin its own quiet investigation, creating another layer of evidence collection independent from my efforts. I maintained minimal contact with my family, responding to texts with brief, non-committal messages that revealed nothing about my emotional state or my growing knowledge. When my mother persisted in trying to arrange a reconciliation, I finally agreed to a brief phone call. "Amanda feels terrible about how everything happened," she claimed, though her tone lacked conviction. "I'm sure she does," I replied neutrally, giving her nothing to report back. "She and Ryan want to clear the air. Maybe we could all have dinner together when things are less raw." The suggestion was so absurd that I almost laughed. "I don't think that will be possible, Mom. I'm focusing on my career right now." The London project led to a promotion. That's wonderful, Jessica." Her surprise was evident. She had expected me to be falling apart, not advancing professionally. "Yes, it is. I need to go now. Conference call with our European office." These brief, controlled interactions served their purpose. Through my parents, Amanda and Ryan would hear that I was withdrawing, focusing on work, showing no signs of suspicion about their deeper schemes. 3 months after the incident, I received my first direct contact from Amanda. A text message, deceptively casual. "Hey Jess, I know things are weird between us, but I've been thinking about you. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime? Just to talk." I waited a full day before responding. "I don't think I'm ready for that yet." Her reply came quickly. "I understand. Just know I'm here when you are ready." The fake concern made my stomach turn, but I recognized it for what it was, not remorse, but reconnaissance. She wanted to gauge my state of mind, to ensure I remained the wounded victim rather than a potential threat. A week later, Ryan reached out via email. "Jessica, I hope this finds you well. There are some financial documents I need that may still be in your possession. tax forms from last year, and some investment statements. Could you check if you have these? It would help us both with the untangling process. The email confirmed what David had already told me. Ryan was trying to cover his tracks, looking for documents that might reveal his schemes. I responded briefly. I'll look through my files this weekend. This began a careful dance. I would find some of the requested documents, the innocuous ones, and take my time delivering them. Each interaction was an opportunity to present the image of someone slowly recovering, still hurt but beginning to move on, and most importantly, completely unaware of any financial impropriety. Meanwhile, the evidence against them continued to mount. David provided screenshots of increasingly panicked messages between Ryan and various bookkeepers at the firm. The security team's investigation, though still quiet, was progressing. I could tell from the specific types of documentation requests coming through official channels. Most revealing were the signs of trouble in the newlyweds' relationship. David reported overhearing arguments. Amanda began posting cryptic social media messages about trust and honesty, ironic, given her actions, but telling nonetheless. For months after their wedding, Megan spotted them having a heated argument at a restaurant. Amanda looked furious, she reported. I couldn't hear everything, but she definitely said something about money going missing. Ryan kept trying to quiet her down. The honeymoon period had ended quickly. As Ryan's financial schemes became more desperate, he was clearly dipping into funds Amanda thought were earmarked for their future. Through mutual friends, I learned they had postponed their planned honeymoon to the Maldives due to unexpected expenses. Ryan had also been passed over for a promotion he had been confident about receiving. The noose was tightening, but I remained patient, continuing to build my case methodically. I focused equally on rebuilding my life. The international division role challenged me professionally, demanding long hours that helped keep my mind occupied. I moved from my temporary studio to a proper one-bedroom apartment in a new neighborhood, deliberately choosing a building with excellent security. I started therapy, finding genuine healing in processing not just the betrayal, but the patterns in my relationship with Amanda that had led to this point. I joined a kickboxing class, finding unexpected satisfaction in the physical release it provided. 6 months after the incident, I received another text from Amanda. This one lacked the false warmth of her previous message. We need to talk about some financial matters involving Ryan's investments. It's important. I recognized the urgency behind her words. Things were unraveling for them, and she was looking for someone to blame or perhaps a way out. I replied simply, I'm traveling for work this week. Perhaps next week. The delay was strategic. According to David, the firm's internal investigation was nearing completion, and they were preparing to involve external authorities. 7 months after returning from London to find my life stolen, I met with the head of security at Ryan's firm, alongside representatives from their legal department and a detective from the Financial Crimes Division of the Boston Police Department. I brought Stephanie with me as my legal counsel. We've been building this case for months, the security director explained. But your documentation fills in crucial gaps. May I ask why you waited to come forward with this information? Stephanie answered for me. My client needed to ensure her own safety and security before exposing such significant crimes. Given the personal relationship involved, there were complex considerations. The detective nodded sympathetically. We understand, Ms. Wright. Unfortunately, we see this pattern often, financial crimes intertwined with personal relationships. I provided my official statement, turning over all the evidence we had accumulated. The timeline I had constructed showed clearly how Ryan had embezzled approximately $1.2 million over 2 years, using various accounts to hide the money trail. The evidence also demonstrated Amanda's knowledge of and participation in the scheme, particularly in the latter months, when she had actively helped Ryan access my personal financial information. As I left the meeting, the detective assured me, "We'll handle this discreetly until we're ready to make arrests. Your safety is a priority." For the first time in months, I felt a weight lifting. Justice was in motion, no longer just a distant hope, but an approaching reality. 2 days later, I received a desperate call from Amanda. "Jessica, I need to see you." "Now." "It's an emergency." "What kind of emergency?" I kept my voice neutral. "I can't discuss it over the phone. Please, just meet me. For coffee. In public." I agreed to meet at a cafe near my office, a busy place where I felt safe. When Amanda arrived, the transformation in her appearance shocked me. Her typically immaculate presentation was disheveled, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Ryan's been lying to me," she blurted before even sitting down fully. "About everything. The money, his job, all of it." I maintained my carefully constructed facade. "What are you talking about?" "He's in trouble, Jess. Big trouble. And I think he's been using me. Using us both." Her voice cracked, her eyes filling with tears that seemed remarkably genuine. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked coolly. "Because I don't know what to do." "And because—" She hesitated. "Because I owe you an apology. What we did to you is unforgivable." "I see that now. Too little, too late." Her remorse came not from genuine regret for hurting me, but from the realization that she had been conned by the same man she had helped con me. "What exactly is Ryan in trouble for?" I asked, pretending ignorance. Amanda leaned forward, lowering her voice. "He's been taking money from his clients, gambling it away, using company funds, and now it's all falling apart. There's an investigation. He's talking about leaving the country." I raised my eyebrows in feigned surprise. "That sounds serious." "It is. And I think I might be implicated too." Her voice trembled. "I didn't know at first, I swear. But then I did know, and I still went along with it, and now." She broke down crying. I watched her, feeling nothing but a cold clarity. This was the moment I had been working toward, Amanda revealing her own guilt, coming to me not out of sisterly love, but desperate self-preservation. "What do you want from me, Amanda?" I asked directly. She looked up, hope flickering in her tear-filled eyes. "Help me, please. You always know what to do in a crisis. You're smarter than both of us. There must be a way out of this." "There is," I said, my voice steady. "The truth." Her face fell. "What do you mean?" "I mean confessing. Taking responsibility. Facing the consequences." "I can't go to prison," she whispered, horrified. "That might not be in your control anymore." As I spoke those words, I noticed movement at the cafe entrance. The detective I had met with earlier entered, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers. They spotted us immediately. Amanda, following my gaze, turned and saw them approaching. Her face drained of color as understanding dawned. "You knew," she whispered, turning back to me. "You've known all along." I met her eyes steadily. "Yes, I've known for months. About everything. The affair, the fraud, the plans to use my inheritance and credit. You set me up. This meeting was your idea," I reminded her. "I just didn't discourage it." The officers reached our table. "Amanda Wright," the detective said formally. "We need you to come with us for questioning regarding an ongoing financial crimes investigation." As they led my sister away, she looked back at me one last time, her expression a mixture of shock, betrayal, and something else, perhaps a glimmer of respect for the sister she had always underestimated. I remained seated, watching through the window as they placed her in the police car. Another car pulled up, and I saw Ryan being similarly escorted from his office building across the street. The carefully orchestrated trap had closed perfectly. My secret, the knowledge I had been gathering while they thought I was merely nursing my wounds, had indeed changed everything. The arrest of Ryan Bennett and Amanda Wright made headlines in Boston's financial district. Investment manager and accomplice charged in million-dollar fraud scheme, read the Boston Globe. The articles mentioned the personal connection, that Amanda was the sister of Ryan's former fiancé, but focused primarily on the financial crimes, sparing me the worst of the public spectacle. Ryan was held without bail due to flight risk concerns. Amanda, facing lesser charges but still serious ones, managed to post bail after 3 days in custody. My parents, finally understanding the full scope of what had happened, were devastated. "We had no idea," my father said when he called me after Amanda's arraignment. "Jessica, if we had known any of this." "But you didn't ask," I replied, the months of hurt still evident in my voice. "You saw what you wanted to see." "You're right," he admitted, his voice breaking. "We failed you. Completely." That acknowledgement meant more than I had expected. It didn't erase the pain of their choices, but it opened a door that I had thought permanently closed. 2 weeks after the arrests, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jessica?" It was Amanda, her voice small and unfamiliar. "Please don't hang up." I remained silent, waiting. "I'm calling because I need to say this directly, not through lawyers or mom and dad." She took a shaky breath. "I'm guilty. Of everything. The affair, the wedding, the fraud. All of it." "I know," I replied simply. "I've accepted a plea deal. I'm going to testify against Ryan. About all of it. How he approached me initially about helping him access your finances, how it evolved into us." She paused. "I'm going to serve time, Jessica. Not as much as Ryan will, but enough." I hadn't expected this level of accountability from her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know I'm not fighting it. I'm not making excuses. What we did to you, was unforgivable. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I finally understand what I've done." The conversation was brief, but it marked a turning point. Not in our relationship. That would require years of work and might never fully recover, but in my own healing process. Hearing Amanda take responsibility without deflection or justification allowed me to begin releasing some of the anger I had carried. Ryan, in contrast, maintained his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. He claimed Amanda had masterminded everything, using her access to my personal information to facilitate the fraud without his knowledge. It was a desperate, transparent lie that fell apart under scrutiny. The financial records clearly showed his activities predated his involvement with Amanda. 6 months after their arrests, I testified at Ryan's trial. Walking into that courtroom, feeling his eyes on me as I took the stand, was one of the hardest things I had ever done. But I spoke clearly and confidently, detailing the relationship timeline, the London trip, and the discovery of their scheme. "Ms. Wright," Ryan's defense attorney asked during cross-examination, "isn't it possible that your testimony is colored by personal resentment over your fiancé leaving you for your sister?" I met his gaze steadily. "My testimony is based on documented evidence, not emotion. The financial records, text messages, and emails speak for themselves. My personal feelings about their relationship are irrelevant to the fact that Mr. Bennett stole over $1 million from his clients and attempted to access my inheritance fraudulently." The jury found Ryan guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Amanda, through her plea agreement, received 18 months in a minimum security facility, plus 5 years of probation and restitution payments. After the sentencing, my mother reached out again, asking if we could meet. We arranged to have lunch at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant halfway between my apartment and their home. "We've been seeing a family therapist," she told me as we awkwardly navigated our first face-to-face conversation in nearly a year. Trying to understand how we could have been so blind about Amanda. About everything. And I prompted when she fell silent. "And we've realized we've been enabling her behavior her entire life. Making excuses. Accepting her version of events without question." She reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but extending the gesture. "We failed you, Jessica. Not just with the wedding, but for years before that. We're trying to do better." It wasn't an instant reconciliation. The damage was too deep for that. But it was a beginning, an acknowledgement of the truth and a commitment to change. We agreed to move forward slowly, with clear boundaries and expectations. As for me, the professional success that had begun with the London project continued to flourish. My international division was expanding, and I was traveling regularly to European capitals, building a reputation as a marketing strategist who could navigate cross-cultural challenges effortlessly. During a conference in Chicago, I met Michael Donovan, an architect specializing in sustainable urban development. Our conversation started professionally. His firm was considering rebranding, but quickly evolved into something more personal. His intelligence and quiet confidence attracted me, but what struck me most was his transparency. After dinner, when he suggested seeing each other again, he handed me his card. "Look me up," he said with a gentle smile. "Check my references. I have nothing to hide." The gesture, understanding my caution after everything I'd been through, meant more than elaborate promises or romantic gestures could have. Our relationship developed slowly and deliberately. I was guarded at first, watching for red flags, analyzing his words and actions for inconsistencies. But Michael was patient, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. 6 months into dating, when he suggested meeting his parents during their visit to Boston, I realized I was finally ready to trust again, not blindly, but thoughtfully. A year after Ryan's sentencing, Amanda was released from prison. She moved in with our parents temporarily, enrolled in community college courses, and began her mandated community service. We exchanged occasional texts, surface-level communication that acknowledged our shared history without pretending the wounds had healed. "I'm working on myself," she wrote in one message. Really working, not just saying it. "I'm glad," I replied, and meant it. Her path to redemption would be long and difficult, but I no longer needed to stand in her way or have her in mine. The inheritance that Ryan had targeted remained safely invested, growing steadily for the future. The wedding deposits I had lost were eventually recovered through the legal proceedings, though I donated the money to a nonprofit supporting victims of financial crimes. 2 years after the incident, I stood once again at the lighthouse where Ryan had proposed, this time alone by choice. I watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, reflecting on how dramatically my life had changed since that earlier visit. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me. The pain had been real and devastating. But in confronting it, in refusing to remain a passive victim, I had discovered strengths I hadn't known I possessed. Strategic thinking, resilience, the courage to stand up for justice, even when it meant confronting those closest to me. I had lost a fiancé who had never truly loved me and a sister who had been consumed by jealousy and resentment. But I had gained something more valuable, self-knowledge and the unshakable certainty that I could survive whatever life threw at me. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared below the horizon, I turned away from the lighthouse and walked back to my car, where Michael waited patiently. We had dinner reservations at a new restaurant in town and plans to browse apartment listings afterward, considering the possibility of moving in together. Life hadn't turned out as I had once planned. It had turned out better, more authentic, more honest, built on a foundation of hard-won wisdom rather than fairy tale expectations. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to what you truly need. Sometimes betrayal, painful as it is, reveals truths that blind trust would never uncover. And sometimes, the most powerful secret you can possess is the knowledge of your own strength. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever experienced betrayal or had to rebuild your life after everything fell apart, I'd love to hear about your journey in the comments. How did you find the strength to move forward? What lessons did you learn along the way? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of resilience and transformation. Remember, your worst moments don't define you. How you respond to them does.